Guitar Studio. I'm Dave, and in this video we've got an interview with a guitar player called Dave Brons. Now, Dave came onto my radar fairly recently, and I was blown away with the stuff that he's doing. Some absolutely awesome music, which he describes as Celtic shred, which is, I think, an interesting term. Hopefully that will intrigue you and you will want to learn a bit more. We talked about his musical background, his approach to songwriting, and all sorts of things about how he gets his music out to fans. He's got a slightly different approach to a lot of people, which is interesting to hear about. And we also talked about gear and all sorts of other stuff. So grab yourself a beverage, pull up a chair, and sit in on the discussion while I talk to Dave Brons. Okay, so for today's interview, I'm really pleased to be joined over the magic of the interwebs by a very talented guitar player who came onto my radar recently, Dave Brons. So, Dave, good morning. How are you?
Hello, I'm good actually. I've just returned from a wild camping trip with the family, and I'm feeling a bit rough. Yeah, I ate something that didn't agree with me.
Oh dear.
I'm here. I'm ready to chat and hang out, and looking forward to meeting Dave online.
Okay, excellent. So you kind of came onto my radar recently. I think it was a promotion that you had going on Instagram or one of the social medias. And I checked your music out. I thought, yeah, I really like what you're doing. I'd like to kind of get to know a little bit more about you and your music. So I'm guessing there might be some other people in a similar position. They know me because they're following my channel. They may not know you. So let's do the really cliched stuff and do your background or your musical journey, kind of what got you into music and various styles that you've experimented with over the years.
Sure. So my name's Dave Brons. I write music that is, I guess, sounds like Steve Vai crossed with Lord of the Rings. It's got a kind of real Celtic vibe to it. But I got into music I was watching BBC back in the 90s. I think it was 90, I want to say 91. There's Guitar Expo with Brian May, Steve Vai and Joe Satriani.
Yeah. It was the one in Seville, wasn't it?
Yeah. So the Seville Expo, and I actually grew up in southern Spain, so I just tuned in to see what it was all about because I grew up near Seville. And Steve Vai came on and played For the Love of God, and I was just like, I don't know, I've never heard anything like it. And then Joe Satriani played Always With You, Always With Me with the tapping bit in it, and I was just blown away, and from that moment I really wanted to play guitar. So I went out and bought myself a 7-string Universe, the multicolored one, which is somewhere in the back, and just really got into trying to emulate what Steve Vai was doing. So I started playing guitar when I was 15, and by the time I'd been playing guitar sort of about 6 months, I'd worked out For the Love of God by ear, and well, it wasn't probably super accurate, but anyway, what I thought it was. And I auditioned to go on to do A-level music, which was kind of crazy because I couldn't read music and had only been playing guitar for about 6 months. And so it just really went from there, to be honest. I did for some reason, probably because I found music so hard, I did a languages degree, and then I went to the Guitar Institute in London when I graduated that. Never used my languages again, and sort of have done a variety of things. But it's only in the last sort of 7 or 8 years that I've really done music full-time professionally. Up until before then, I did all sorts of stuff, teaching music in prisons, doing youth work, a mix of everything. But so that's how I got from there to here.
Yeah, so that's really sort of really in at the deep end when your first exposure to guitar and like your gateway drug was Steve Vai and Joe Satriani going full shred, as opposed to you start off learning a few status quo riffs and then you discover that there's a richer vein of guitar out there.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the real incentive and what I loved about Vai and Satriani's music is that first it is instrumental, and I'd never really heard instrumental music that wasn't classical music, and because I grew up being my dad's a classical music fan, it just really drew me in. And then my big ambition was never really to be able to play like Steve Vai or Joe Satriani, it was to write my own music. That's always the thing that I really enjoyed. So even right to this day, I don't know any piece by Vai or Satriani all the way through. I just pretty determined to steal the ideas that I liked and write my own tunes. So I've always written music right from day one. I was really motivated, and that's the thing I enjoy the most. I mean, I love the shred and all that, but the thing that I most want to do is create something that people, well, primarily that I enjoy myself, but then hopefully other people enjoy as well.
Yeah, that's an interesting progression, because most people you talk to, the natural route is doing covers of other people's music, then covers with your own spin on it and making it your own, and then you start to create. It sounds like you've gone from A direct to Z, and you're straight into into creating your own stuff.
Yeah, I mean, there might be 2 reasons. I'm slightly lazy probably when it comes to learning things. I don't have much motivation for learning a whole piece just to play it, because I've never really performed covers. I've played in a few covers bands in my time, but yeah, my big motivation is always, if I hear something, doesn't matter if it's on guitar, if it's on a piano idea or mandolin, violin, whatever, or Ullin pipes is my big thing. Actually, maybe we get on to talk about that. But Ullin pipes is like an Irish bagpipe, and I heard those early in my guitar sort of journey. Heard Ullin pipe playing and thought, wonder if I can do that on guitar. So that's become a big part of my sound. So yeah, my big motivation is always to create. Having said that, I mean, we all have to stand on the shoulders of giants. I mean, so I have spent quite a bit of time learning bits by Van Halen and other guys.
Yeah.
So you said you kind of struggled with music a little bit, but you spent time at Guitar Institute, so presumably you broke those blocks, and you've done the theory route as well as just the everything done by ear.
Yeah, I mean, like a lot of rock guitarists, I'm very much learned by ear. I'm actually old enough that vinyl was still a thing when I started learning guitar, because CDs were coming in a big way. So learning stuff by ear was the only way we could do it. We had no internet. So, for example, when I saw people doing tapping, I just thought it was amazing, because I'd never seen anyone do it and didn't know anybody in my neighborhood who could do it. And the same for sort of sweep picking and all. When Yngwie Malmsteen came on the horizon, just wondering how on earth does he do it? So I spent ages trying to work out how he's doing it. And sort of part of that, I think, leads to a guitarist in my generation of coming up with our own way of doing things, because it wasn't so readily available, and a lot of things we worked out wrong. And so my version of Yngwie was totally wrong, but it sort of incorporated into my way of doing it. That's the way it kind of was.
Yeah.
Now with YouTube, it's amazing. If you want to learn any technique, you've probably got the guy who invented it who can teach it you. So it's incredible time to be learning guitar right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what's your approach with you're much more about composing your own music? What's your approach? Do you still drive it by ear and what sounds good and experimentation, or do you embrace theory a bit more and you come at it with, I kind of know what's allowable in this context of what I'm trying to achieve?
So theory to me is a way of shortcutting. It's a shortcut. So if you already know what's going to work in the key, you can get there quicker. So my theoretical knowledge is all to do with, obviously I understand my chords, I understand my modes, and all that stuff. But actually, I still really start with a melody first, very much melody driven, and then quite often I actually write on piano, not on guitar, because I'll get the melody and then I'll try and harmonize it with different bass notes and different chords and stuff. So on my second album, there's loads of stuff that's sort of more kind of sounds like 20th century classical, where I decided not to stick to like chords in a key and things like that. One thing I've never really done is come up with a chord progression like a jam track and then try to make something over the top. I always go the other way. I start with a melody first. and then try and harmonize it, because I just think there's a lot more possibilities in doing that. I can give you a quick example if you want.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, go for it.
All right. So let's see if I got some sound. All right. So say I've got the melody for Three Blind Mice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Obviously, if I wanted to work out what key that is, I could work out what the key is and harmonize it in a major scale. But I think a more fun thing would be to experiment first with bass notes. So I go something like this. Or you could go. If you're going to go slightly more normal, you could go. And then you can add chords. If you did all like sus2 chords, it could be, which is quite unusual. Or you could go to a minor chord on the second note. So you can do. So I'm more motivated by doing things that way, or maybe like a classical composer that like Vaughan Williams would do, stack a load of minor chords. So you go. So that's why I always go melody first. Firstly, because I want people to be able to hum the tune. I'm not too interested in doing shreddy things. I mean, I do shreddy things, but largely I'm trying to be melody driven. And also, I don't feel it sort of boxes me in. But even with that, you've got to know enough theory to know kind of how to make those things work, you know?
Yeah, so it's kind of like knowing the options, that if you went down like using the sus chords, you got the ambiguity between major and minor. If you just do stacked minors, you're starting to go in and out of the key, get some chromaticisms in, and you get where you get tension and where you get release, really, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And another thing that really helps is for having names for things is communicating to the band. I mean, one technique I use a lot, which I recommend guitarists to look up, is chromatic mediant modulation, which is what film composers use. And I do a lot of that stuff on the second album, and that's something I actually went out and learnt. So I heard about it from a guitarist called Jake Wilson, who's Jam Track's central guy, amazing musician and composer. And he said, oh, you should check out chromatic mediant. So I went and studied that and used that theoretical approach to give me different palettes and different chord combinations, really. So yeah, so it's always a balance of everything. I think ultimately the rule of if it sounds good, it is good is one I very much live by. When it comes to the jazz thing of improvising over different chord changes, I can't really do it like a jazz guy do, but I do a bit of that as well, where I'll kind of use unusual chords so that the key changes throughout guitar solo and things like that. I use all that stuff, and that comes from a theoretical standpoint. Yeah. But I'll still rely heavily on my ear first, and then go, oh, maybe that ain't the right scale, and look it up.
Yeah, because I got the first album, based on a true story, and I noticed the first song in there, Star. Now I remember it was a couple of days before this arrived in the post. I've been just watching some stuff on YouTube, and there's been some stand-up comedian, I think it was Al Murray, was doing a piece about. Everyone says Mozart's the greatest composer. What did he write? He wrote Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. Ding ding. It's a simple melody. How is that guy a genius? And I saw this CD. I thought, well, Twinkle Twinkle Little Star as an opening track. That's a brave move. And then within about 30 seconds, it was like, wow, what you could do, like you just showed us there, by understanding you got the basic melody and just being able to harmonize it out in different ways and just take it way beyond that simple series of notes. It shows you what powerful thing music can be.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the thing is melody is always a combination of notes and rhythm. And so the thing that's really powerful about Twinkle Twinkle Little Star is the rhythm, because even without the notes being the same, you can kind of recognize it. So that actually wasn't one of my own genius ideas. I was putting my son to bed, and he started singing Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, but with a minor key. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. So I think it goes something. So that's so twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. So in the minor, I was like, wow, that sounds really spooky and haunting. So literally that same night, I went down to my studio and just wrote the whole tune pretty much. So it's amazing. One thing that I found is if you are always creating music, your brain is more open to inspirations coming out of the blue. If you suddenly just sit down and say, right, I'm going to try and write music today, it doesn't work as good as always being in that constant state of writing. So I write all the time, loads of stuff. There's tons of stuff that doesn't make it onto albums, and but having that ear open, your mind's processing it in the background all the time, and I think that's really a top tip if you're gonna get into writing. The other top tip, and I didn't realize this was a thing until I was chatting to a guitar player called Tom Quayle. He was asking me how I write. I said, I sing everything. I sing everything in first, all the parts. Quite often I'll sing, if I'm orchestrating for violins, I'll sing the melody and literally record it with a microphone. I'll sing the harmony parts in. So I think some guitar players are so connected to their instrument, they can just do that stuff automatically. Like there's no gap between their musical brain and their fingers. But for me, my voice is much more immediate, and I think I can come up with better ideas if I sing them. So even guitar solos, I'll even blast and go something like do do do, or something like really daft where I'm like trying to sing sweep picking or fast lines, you know. I think because if you put it into the range of the human voice, it helps you not to play too many notes as well. It's a bit of a downfall of guitar players that you try and fill all the spaces because you have to take a breath. So that's kind of a thing I didn't realize was I don't know, an approach, but I did naturally. So
okay, so kind of going back to the story behind Star. One thing I really like in your CDs, all beautifully packaged, plastic free, which is awesome. But each one, you've got the little compositional notes, you've got the story behind them, and I think that's something I kind of miss in contemporary music. You don't see so much. Classical music, you always get a bit of biography of the composer and how the music came to be written. But contemporary artists tend not to do that. But there's some really nice insights as to what the theme was behind something, or what the inspiration, or what was going through your mind. I think it's a really nice idea.
Yeah, I've spoken to some people who write instrumental music, and they say, oh, the reason I don't give like the meaning is because it's for each listener to ascertain their own meaning or whatever. That's the whole point of instrumental music. But I don't know, for me, I like to give some context because my whole motto is making music that will transport you. And so I want people to have a kind of an idea of the scene that the music's supposed to take them to, because that's another thing I do is I very much write with a movie scene in mind. Like, so when I write, I'm imagining what the characters are doing, so there's always like a film connection. So that's why I got the effort of writing the notes, and plus it just takes me back to being a kid and getting, you know, CDs and vinyl and stuff like that, and just reading the liner notes. It's just a cool thing in this age of digital music where you can have a billion songs in your pocket. I think if you're going to make a physical product, you've got to make it super good, so that to reward people who are going to invest that little bit extra to have the CD. So that there's a bit of that in there as well.
Yeah. So kind of going through your CD catalogue, you mentioned a couple of times like the cinematic sort of idea, which kind of brings us very nicely to the more recent one, Not All Those Who Wander Are Lost. You called it Adventures in Music for Tolkien fans. Now, I'm not a huge Tolkien fan, so for me it was more an adventure in Tolkien for a music fan. It's still got your style, but it's quite a departure from the first album because it's a much richer arrangement. Just like looking at some of the cover out there, the different musicians involved. A much different undertaking, I imagine, to a more straight sort of traditional shred album, guitar instrumental album.
The first album is, I guess, a kind of slightly Celtic take on Joe Satriani or Steve Vai. It's quite, and those, some of the songs on the first album I wrote when I was 15, so when I started playing guitar. So that album is like a collection of my favorite ideas from being 15 to when I put that album out. For the second one, I didn't have any ideas. I just had to sit down and say, right, I've got to write an album. I'd been out wild camping and thought, and quite often I take Lord of the Rings because I am a Lord of the Rings fan and read the books most years. And I just thought, I wonder if I could turn the Lord of the Rings books into an album, and thought that'd be probably quite difficult. But what I decided to do is just kind of sit down and have like the student mind, where I'd sit down and try things, and if they worked, I kept them, and if they didn't, I threw them out. And so the reason the album sounds a lot more complex is just because I was like, what would Holst do on this? What would Shostakovich do here? What would John Williams do here? Yeah. Go and listen to those guys, and as a rock guitarist, try and figure out how they're getting some of those sounds. So yeah, it was really, really fun writing the second album. Really challenging. A lot of stuff that I had to get rid of because it didn't really work. And then also working with real classical musicians was also amazing.
So how was that experience? Because I imagine they're not used to dealing with somebody who rocks up with a massive valve amp and some overdrive pedals and that sort of thing. So
to be fair, I just rocked up with my computer, the backing track and stuff. So it was interesting for me because I had to write out all the parts by hand. I tried learn how to do Sibelius, and I just couldn't get my head around it. So I decided to just handwrite the parts for all the horn players, flute players, violins, which was great for me, a real learning opportunity again. The thing the classical musicians found the hardest was the odd time signatures. So there's a couple of songs that go like 5, 4, 7, 8, things like that. And there's one I think is either in 15/8 or 17/8 or something like that. And I think I had a lot of things where the classical musicians are expecting a conductor, but I'm giving them the click, and they found that incredibly rigid. Yeah. And I was having to tell them, you can't play behind the beat in rock music. You've got to be like bang on the metronome, because if you watch a conductor, there's quite a lot of flexibility from when he does the hand down, when he goes like that. It's all an orchestra's learn. And I find it hard when I follow a conductor. I can't do it. I find it really weird. Like, it feels so vague. So that was the interesting thing. But also the thing that's amazing is writing pieces. Some of the bits on the album are quite atonal and dissonant, and have a classical musician just play it first time, bang on with conviction, when it's just so weird. I just think that's amazing. For me, if something's really dissonant, I'm kind of thinking, is that the right note? Because they just read it and they play it full commitment. Yeah. Amazing. Very inspiring. Yeah.
So how long did the recording process for that take? Because it feels like the word epic gets overused a bit, but it feels like a really epic sort of undertaking.
Certainly, it took about 3 years, maybe longer actually, maybe 4. The reason it takes so long when you're a self-employed musician is partly because it's all the other stuff that you've got to do in between to earn money, like, teaching and doing gigs and things. So the writing side, you've got to kind of fit it in and then fit around people's schedules. Yeah. And then some of it is just really hard to write as well. If I was just banging out jam tracks and noodling with a Dorian mode over, I could bang out 10 a week. Yeah. But this is music that I want to stand the test of time, so I'm not really happy with putting it out too quickly. Yeah. That said, my current album, my third album, I've put it out pretty fast. We've written it all during the pandemic, so I'm hoping that'll be out at the end of this year, and that's been a different process again.
Yeah, so anybody's watching this, not familiar with it, thinking, okay, I'm going to go and check this guy out. They'll be firing up Spotify, and they might be a little bit disappointed because your strategy for getting your music out is a little bit different to a lot of people. You don't do the Spotify thing, do you? Or I say Spotify, streaming platforms in general, really. Streaming
at all. The only place you can really find my music streaming is there's the odd video on YouTube. So if you Google me on YouTube, you'll find some stuff on there. So yeah, do you know what? I was on streaming for my first album. You could stream it. And when the lockdown pandemic thing hit, I started, I finally just got some motivation to really get my marketing into gear, because basically I lost almost all my income. So it's like, I need to sell. I've got like 2,000 of these CDs under my bed. I need to sell them. So I put a marketing strategy together with Facebook ads to give away 4 free tracks. And so what I thought I'd do, and obviously at that point, my YouTube views are going up. The Spotify streams are going up because more and more people every day I'm paying to tell people about my music. And I thought, well, it must equal more money, right? So I saw the streams were, it's getting tons of listens. It's like this steep exponential curve. And I went in and checked, and I'd earned, I think it is £40 for 4 months. Wow. It was nothing, honestly. Yeah. And bear in mind, I own all the rights to my music. There's no record company intermediary. And I just couldn't understand it. And also, the thing that people don't understand is I sell CDs every day of the week. I'm super blessed to be able to do that. But some weeks, if I'd sell, I could sell like tons of CDs, but it's still less than what I've spent in ads, so I make a loss. And this particular day, I think that week I'd lost quite a few £100. And I had someone say, "Oh, why can't you just put it on Spotify?" And I just like, right, I've had enough. So I went and checked, and so I pulled all my stuff off streaming. Now, what I will say is I have nothing against people who do streaming. Streaming is amazing. It's so convenient. You can get stuff from bands that normally you probably wouldn't have heard of. But for me, the thing that streaming does, and it's the same for iTunes and Amazon Music, by the way, is it separates me from the customer. So, because I'm a small-time musician, knowing who bought my music is really essential. First of all, so I can give them super good customer service, and second of all, if they like my last album, I want to sell them the next one. All right, so putting it on iTunes, they gatekeep all that because they don't want you to know. They want to have their information, but they don't want you to have it. So it just became impractical. And the more I looked into Spotify, the crazier. It's just super unfair. So I'll just really briefly try and explain why it's unfair. So what I thought would happen is if somebody signed up for Spotify and they've paid the $9.99 a month and all they do is listen to my music, I'll get the lion's share of that money, right? Yeah. But that's not how it works at all. How it actually works is any given day, they tot up all the streams, and whoever has the biggest percentage share of the streams that day gets all the money. So for example, yeah, exactly. So what happens is the Beatles and Queen and someone like Bruno Mars or Ed Sheeran, they win the streaming battle every day. So what happens is that $9.99 that one of my fans might have paid thinking it's going to me, I don't get any of it. It all goes as a percentage. So say if they've had 80% of the streams, they get 80% of that $9.99. And then whatever percentage I have, bearing in mind, I only have 2 albums and I've only been around for a few years. I've not been around for 50 years. Mm-hmm. Then I get a percentage of that, which is 0.000 something nothing. So that's why it's kind of an unfair system. It's not that I'm against streaming. It's just that the way the money is distributed totally benefits record companies and not really the artist. And if you think about it, it makes sense, because what happened, Napster came out and all of a sudden the record companies were like, oh dear, that's our revenue gone. And they thought, well, how can we monetize it? Well, if we've got 50 years worth of songs, even if we just earn 0.0001 cents per song, then the record companies can still make bazillions of pounds. I'd argue that for an independent artist of a certain age, there's no point being on Spotify at all. Mm. There really isn't. I think if you're up and coming and you've just left music college, maybe Spotify's a thing. But for me, the only way I can make money is by selling direct to my customers. Yeah. So that's why.
Yeah, because something else struck me about Spotify. I was approached a while back by one of these, like the distribution companies, and I looked into it. I thought, well, I don't use them, so I'm not going to accept the sponsorship. I couldn't take sponsorship from a service I don't use. But it made me look into the whole how you get onto Spotify, how you get onto the streaming platforms, and you can't. Unless you're backed by a major music record label, you've got to go through one of these distributors. So even then, they're kind of like you say, they're kind of gatekeeping who can get in and share their music.
Yeah, although in fairness, it is fairly easy. I think I signed up distribution through CD Baby, and then you just say where you want them to send it, and they sort that out and send you your royalties.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It's still somebody else in the chain who's taken their cut, and when you're
they're taking their cut again. I mean, there's a certain amount of that. Like, so if I use a card service to charge for CDs on the website or PayPal, like they take a cut. So there's a certain amount of that goes on. I'm not too worried about that. The really big issue for me is is that connection with the customer. You know, if someone buys from me from my website, I know exactly who they are, and I can keep in touch with them. And that's. And for me, the goal to make this really sustainable would be is all about building those people and adding, so every time I sell a CD, it's at the moment, this stage in my career, it's not about making tons of money from CD sales. It's about building the fan base that hopefully I can continue to make music long term.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm going for.
Yeah, because I said I try to support independent artists, and something a lot of them do, and certainly you do, is that you get the CD and you get all the artwork, but there's the little personal handwritten note, and it's just kind of the artist has taken the time to acknowledge that I'm a fan. I want to listen to their music, and there's that connection, as opposed to I'm just getting something that's blister packed and just sent in the post to me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it takes me ages to sign all the CDs, but I think it's really important to create that connection. And also, it's really important to me that people who buy the CD know it's me who's picked it up. I've seen their name come in. I've written down the thing and I've put it in I do it all myself.
Yeah.
And I guess maybe there could come a time where I can't do that anymore. Yeah, as long as I can I'm always going to try and do that, go that extra mile.
So that the 4-track giveaway that you mentioned, that's still ongoing. So that's something just from your website.
Yeah, if you go to davebrons.com, you can just download the 4 free tracks, and they get emailed to you with a bit of a video and a story behind each one, and sort of listener instructions on where the music should take you and what to think about. So yeah, the mailing list is pretty cool. It's a pretty cool way of accessing my music, because again, like, I send a track a day for 4 days, just so that the idea is to encourage people to make time to listen to music really deliberately. I think we've lost that thing, and I think part of why vinyl is coming back is because people have taken the record out, putting it on, and actively listening, and then turning the record over. And I think part of that is because people have, and I include myself in this, have perhaps forgotten to really actively listen, and it's just become like background music in the supermarket, like a commodity. And for me, growing up, music was everything. If I got Steve Vai's Passion and Warfare and put it on, I actively listened, because I just thought it was so incredible, or whatever, the latest Van Halen, Megadeth CD, just because you don't want to miss a thing.
Yeah, there was that almost like ritualistic thing of taking the paper sleeve out of the cover and taking the record out and blowing the dust off, and it was an experience, as opposed to I'm just going around the house, just put my phone on to play some music. It just becomes more like wallpaper, really, doesn't it?
I really think as well, like, in terms of like the whole pressures from social media to be always on, there's always and all that. I think people I get tons of emails from people saying, "Oh, thanks so much for your suggestions of just stopping everything and watching the video, or stopping everything and listening to the music." It's like, it's such an enjoyable experience because we don't stop much these days. There's always something to distract us. I mean, like typically in my house, someone will be watching a movie whilst on their phone doing a thing and another thing.
Yeah.
It's like we don't do anything like single-mindedly, and I think that my mission in a way with people listening to my music is not just about the music, it's about building in kind of an escape from stress and building in some strategies to escape with music, because that's something I've found super helpful in my journey, and you know, in terms of combating things like depression and overwork and things like that. And I want my music to be part of that kind of thing as well. So
Yeah, because there's an incredible power to music. It's something I notice, particularly for me, it's more like Baroque and classical. If I sit and actively listen to it, there is I know music will give you a physiological response, but I feel like I'm being nourished by it in some way. It can really affect your mental state and your physical state.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, music's totally undervalued in a lot of ways, isn't it? It's like, can you imagine a film industry or an advertising industry without music? I think we need to get back to valuing what we do as well, and not, you know, not just giving away our stuff for free on Spotify or whatever, you know, but really valuing it, because as we know, going forward with the increase in AI, a lot of jobs are going to become redundant and going to be replaced by machines. And that creativity is something we need to prize a lot more, because soon that's going to be all that distinguishes us, really. Yeah. So I think we need more. We need to value ourselves, our own creativity a lot more, I think, than our productive output. I think all that stuff is a bit overrated, really.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm conscious of time, so I can kind of change direction slightly, because I know guitarists tend to be gearheads. They'll be looking over your shoulder, and there's a Strat-shaped object behind you, but it's not a Strat. It's got a strange headstock I don't recognise. What is your main guitar there that I see on the album covers?
So this is probably my main guitar now. This is Jaden Rose.
Jaden Rose, yeah.
Jaden sadly isn't in business anymore, so I got one of the last guitars that he made. But this is custom made to my spec, 24 frets. It has like a sustainer built in.
I was looking at that. So that's the second coil on the neck pickup there.
No, it's that. No, it's actually this one.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah.
So that's the Sustainiac, which is, in my opinion, a lot better than the Fernandez Sustainer. Satriani and Vai have both switched to using it.
Yeah.
So you can buy those yourself and install them if you're brave.
Yeah.
In terms of my other guitars, I've got Strats and Tellys, but I'll just get the one off the other. This is a Warmoth custom guitar that I made. That's what I used on the first album.
Yeah. That looks brilliant. Yeah.
It has 22 frets, not 24. That's why I got the Jaden Rose.
Yeah.
And this is a Telecaster that I put together.
Oh, right.
Just like a parts build.
Yeah. And this is what I use for all my clean tones. And then my heavy rhythm tones come from the Jaden Rose 7-string. So a lot of the rhythm tones on the album are on this guitar.
Oh, very nice.
So that extra string just gives you so much more depth to the sound, doesn't it?
Yeah, because I mean, I'm not much of a 7-string guy in a lot of ways, but a lot of times if I'm doubling up like double basses and cellos, I really like having the option of the seventh string.
Yeah.
I'm not like a big 7-string riff meister or anything like that.
Yeah.
This guitar just has a particularly, even if it wasn't a 7-string, it just has a particularly nice rhythm tone. So So yeah, and then in terms of amps and pedals and stuff, I'm just going to see if I can move my camera just to show you. So these are my tube amps. I made these.
I saw something on the liner notes on the CD that it was a self-built amp, which was unusual.
Top one's an EL84 18 watt amp. It's a super classic plexi sound, and I use that for clean parts. Just as a nice kind of it's hard to describe it. It's somewhere between a Marshall and a Vox kind of tone. And then there's a video on YouTube of me building this. This is actually a Friedman clone, so Friedman B100, which I made. And there's a video of me building the whole thing if anyone's interested in geeking out. And in terms of pedals, I have the usual loads of pedals, but my main sound is a Wampler Tunnus.
That's a Klon inspired device, isn't it? Yeah.
And my main delay comes from the timeline, which is a pedal that most guitarists have. Yeah. Across. And then everything else is just different varieties of overdrive. So I've got the Blue Saraceno Dirty Boy, which I quite like, and then I've got a triple rectifier for the heavy sounds when I'm playing live. And I've got the Boss CS8 switcher, which I don't recommend because it's too complicated. So the whole thing of building my own amps just came from I got burgled and somebody nicked. I had a Mesa Boogie and some classic Marshalls, and they stole everything. They stole all my guitars. So when that happened, I made the warm-off guitar, and then I didn't have any money left from the insurance to buy back the Mesa Boogies because they're notoriously expensive. So I just went on a quest to make my own amps, and actually a lot of that informs like my tone choices, just because I've been able to tweak the amp to exactly what I want. The same with the Friedman. The Friedman is pretty similar to a Friedman amp, but I've tweaked some of the values to make it more something that I want. So any guitarist out there want to get into amp building, the way to do it in the UK is Modulus Amps, are a UK company, and they supply kits. Just start with a kit. It's a really addictive pastime. Yeah. But one that you don't need tons of electronics knowledge to do. I just taught myself off the internet.
Oh, I imagine it would be quite scary and complicated, because I've seen photos of insides of amps. Like, that's a whole lot of stuff I don't understand.
Yeah. So the only scary thing about it is you're dealing with 500 volts, but there's like a whole procedure to wiring it all up and checking it that it's safe. And in our country, with all your RCD circuit breakers on your house and stuff, you're unlikely to get killed. But you can build like a Fender Champ circuit. It's dead simple. I mean, there's only about 10 parts in it. Something like that would be a great place to start. Although the 18 watt circuit is a fantastic sounding amp. Again, not really too complicated to make. A Friedman's complicated to make. I won't start with something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, good stuff. So it's been really interesting talking to you, a bit about your music, and hopefully that's inspired people either to go out and find your website and listen to your music, or go out and build an amp. Before we wrap up, a few moments of gratuitous self-promotion. So do you want to shout out websites, social medias and whatnot?
I mean, sure. My main thing is my Facebook page, so just do a search on Facebook for Dave Brons Music, I think it is. And then, just go on my website, get the 4 free tracks, davebrons.com, and there'll be a link there to get the free tracks. And then once you have the free tracks, there's links on there to get the music as well, if you're interested in buying.
And I suggest people do, because I did, and I think it's absolutely wazzo stuff. To be honest, I don't think I got as far as the 4 free tracks. I saw the promotional video on Facebook. I'm just going to go for it, and I was not disappointed. Some great stuff there.
Oh, thanks, Dave. I appreciate it.
Okay, good stuff. So thanks very much for taking the time to join me. All the best of luck for your future. And you say you've got a new album coming out, so
something to keep an eye on.
By the end of this year. Another Celtic instrumental guitar kind of things. Really, really excited about it. So
good stuff. Good luck with that. Okay, thank you very much for your time, Dave. Cheers.
Thank you, Dave.
Cheers. Bye. Bye now. Well, I hope you found that interesting. I'll put links down there in the information section to Dave's website and various other bits and bobs that you might want to go and check out. If you like the video, please click like, and if you really enjoyed it and you want to see other content that I post, then please click the subscribe button, and obviously head on over to Dave's YouTube channel and subscribe to him as well, because he's got some great content. You're welcome to join the conversation, so there's a comment section down there if you want to chip in. If there's something specific that you want to ask me, whether it's about guitars, music, anything at all, I don't always get notified when people post comments on YouTube videos, so if you go here, there's a form you can fill in if you want to ask me a question, and I'll get around to answering it in a future video. Okay, that's all for now. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.